Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Starkey Farmstead. So, do me a favor, guys. Drop over in comments. Tell me who you are and when you're seeing this. So, I just want to say welcome back to another podcast with me. My name is Samantha. I'm the owner operator of a 2-acre farmstead located in South Louisiana. I'm a homesteader by choice, a published author. You can find our book now on Amazon, Growing Under a Poison Sky. It's just going to introduce you guys to weather modification and the toxins that are just basically being poured down on top of us, right? The destruction of our world, basically. So, good morning, Kelly. So, I just want to say hello to everybody and say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening whenever you are watching this. Hi, guys. So I've got a great video for you. I've been meaning to do this video for over a week since the tragic murders that happened in Devil's Den, Arkansas, right? The state park on July 26, 2025 of Clinton and Kristen Brink, and the almost murder of their two beautiful young daughters, 7 and 9 years old. So I did a little deeper research and I came across some of the most disturbing information about Devil's Den that I feel like I need to share this with you guys. Because lately we've kind of been going into the Native Americans and how state parks, national parks are actually overlaid over what was indigenous peoples' spiritual lands, basically the mountains, the caves. Like these places have a lot of significant spiritual meaning to the first peoples. And it's kind of ironic that that's where the elected officials decided to put state and national parks. Just to give you guys a quick update real fast, we're waiting for everybody to pop up. Hammer is doing better. That is my German Shepherd. If you were unaware, I almost lost him Tuesday. We are still not 100% sure what happened to him. It's going to take an MRI to fully diagnose him. He's 6.5 years old. He is trained to protect me and my home, and he's beautiful, amazing dog. So he is doing better, but he can't live on steroids and gabapentin. Oh, congratulations, Joanne. She said, I got my book. Thank you so much for purchasing our book, folks. Again, you can find that on Amazon, Growing Under a Poison Sky. I'm super excited. Thank you, guys. My husband goes Wednesday to see the neurosurgeon. He's 46, and a month ago, he was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm on top of high blood pressure and diabetes. So it's just been, when I look back over July, I'm just like, whoa, that was one for the record books, right? But with no more chitter chatter from me, let's get into this. So first thing I want to talk about with you guys real fast is kind of what you see going on around the Devil's Den area. Before I get into really kind of the history of what the story that I have from you today about the missing little girl, how that relates, and then everything that's happened before and after that, I want to give you an understanding of what the First Nations people believed about that area. In traditional Southeastern Indian beliefs, the cosmos is considered as a 3-layer. They have the above world, the middle world, and the below world. The above world is the sky, which is associated with creative forces, the abode of perfect spirit beings, and the souls of their ancestors. The below world is watery and unformed, associated with destructive forces, and inhabited by imperfect spirit beings and monsters. Middle world is the Earth's surface, right? That's where you and I would inhabit. The plants, the animals, is where we all belong. In Indian mythology, stories tell of spirit beings or heroes crossing the borders of these realms for various reasons. Spirits that create something, whether they be benevolent or they be good, heroes to avenge some wrong or gain some benefit for their people. In these stories, the ability to move between the world is a sign of power. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because sometimes it is shown by like possessions, like what they consider magical possessions of a hero character. Sometimes it is a spirit that has the combination features of animals and humans. Okay. And sometimes the story uses locations to indicate the crossings. For instance, in the Osage creation story, the first ancestors descend from the sky. They alight on branches of tall trees. In the Cato story, the ancestors climbed up from the below earth and emerged on the earth's surface through the mouth of a cave. In both examples, in Middle World is an act of portals or doorways. Now, I've done videos on this for you guys, how upset the indigenous peoples have become with like the University of Arizona, what happened in Hawaii when they were taking over the mountains and putting up their telescopes. You know what I'm saying? Like the native indigenous peoples were very upset about that because they consider those places portals to other worlds, or what I call thin places, where the veil between spiritual and physical is very thin. Now, it goes on to say that very often in their stories, a sacred place is a mountaintop or a cave, a well or a spring or other water feature. These are all crossing places between the domains of physical and spiritual, or in their beliefs, of the upper world, the middle world, and the below world. A high mountain links the earth with the sky. A cave links the earth with the underground. A well or spring or lake is a place where water from below bubbles to the surface. Now, there was a fascinating example of rock art in Northwest Arkansas that indicated a theme of the portals between the worlds. The pictograph panel shows a horned figure with a round head and turned down arms. The horns are filled with red paint, but the rest is shown just in an outline. The round head, looking straight forward, has no facial features. Okay, to distinguish it, but it's decorated with a single diagonal line like a face paint. The figure is drawn above a horizontal fissure in the rock wall, and it makes it look like this horned thing is emerging, right? Like coming up from underground. The arms are shown slightly bent, like it's pushing itself up out of this fissure. Now, what's even more interesting is that next to this pictograph is an even older pictograph, which is much more faded. And again, there's this really weird shaped round head. It shows the horns. And then on this one, the eyes are triangular, right? To almost make it like a hawk's eye. And then the mouth is turned down and it's got like these teeth, like it's almost like it's angry, right? But this one, instead of having almost like red horns, it's got like these antlers drawn out of its head. It goes on to say a possible interpretation is that these panels could have been showing something was coming out of the ground. These creatures are described in stories and depicted in art with either serpent or cat-like bodies, with a head with horns or antlers, often a long coiled tail, and sometimes wings. Now, I wanted to share that because where these pictographs were found is actually in the area we're going to be discussing today. So this, I'm going to show you a picture real quick. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but I will link all the articles, all the videos I show you in description so you can go look at it. But this is what it looks like. You can just see the round head. You can see the arms there. You see the fissure. Look at the dark spot on the picture. That is called a fissure between two rocks. If you look above it, you can see what looks like a rounded head, arms, and then the horns. Now, what's interesting, this is it a little further back. You might can see it a little better. See? Now, what's interesting is the original, they did it for you. Somebody they used a certain type of scan to pick this up. But do you see the original one on one side and then the other one? They're showing you that this has been an area that these Native Americans have obviously through generations seen what they believe something coming up out of the ground that we would consider almost demonic, right? Now, I'm telling you all this because the story I have for you today is disturbing in the least. And it's going to take us back into time because, history repeats itself. This is an article I found, and it's titled Against All Odds. 8-year-old Catherine Van Alst emerges unscathed after 6 days in the wilderness. This young girl was 8 years old. Her name was Catherine. She was from Kansas City, Missouri. And in June of 1946, her family visited the mountains of the Devil's Den State Park for the first time. Devil's Den State Park, located in the state of Arkansas, covers about 10 square kilometers and is a popular destination for families and hikers. Catherine disappeared on Sunday, June 16th, 1946, while wandering near the campsite with her brothers. Okay? Search teams combed the forest for this little girl for 6 full days. 6 days, you guys. They searched for an 8-year-old girl in what is some of the oldest growth woods around there. These are mountains with caves and waterfalls and like really aggressive animals. I mean, this is not an area that doesn't have wildlife, right? On the 6th day, Saturday, June 22nd, 1946, finally a voice responded to the calls of the searchers. Here I am. That's what she said. Here I am. The 8-year-old girl emerged from a cave with a pale smile. Considering the circumstances, she was eerily calm, and aside from some insect bites, completely unharmed. This was recounted by Porter Chadwick, a student at the University of Arkansas, who was part of the search team who was the first one to find her. The 8-year-old was found 48 kilometers away from the campsite where she disappeared. The cave where Catherine spent 3 nights was located near a mountain peak in the vicinity of Fayetteville, Arkansas. This little girl had to have walked over 10 miles a day to get where she ended up. And I'm going to show you a video that shows you how almost impossible it would have been for her to have made that journey, okay? Now, this article goes on to say something extremely concerning. It goes, others did not escape the horror. The newspaper Pittsburgh Press, which existed from 1884 until 1992, reported on June 24th, 1946, shortly after discovery of young Catherine. The article mentioned that even before the 8-year-old girl's disappearance, other individuals had gotten lost in the rugged area. And unlike Catherine, these individuals were all found dead. According to the Pittsburgh Press, they had died of exhaustion, hunger, and terror. Guys, did y'all hear me? Hunger, exhaustion, and terror. They died of fear. Okay. In August of 2017, I brought this up to y'all in the first Devil's Den video that I did. There was a young man named Rodney Letterman that disappeared. His friend went back to get his medication. He comes back, Rodney's gone. They never find him until they find his body parts, kind of like everywhere, right? Knowing all of this, it's even more astonishing that young Catherine Van Alst survived nearly unharmed for 6 days in the wilderness of Arkansas, especially considering she was from the big city and this was her first visit there. When they hadn't found me in the first day or two, I knew I would die, but I still wasn't scared. That was her direct quote. So she knew relatively early that her chances of survival were not good. Not being afraid in such a hopeless situation is extraordinary, not just for a child, but for an adult. They said that she managed to survive on berries and spring water. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people speculate about with this story of Catherine. They do not believe it was possible for her to have covered the ground she covered from where she originally went missing to where she was originally found, coming out of the mouth of a cave. They believed, because in her own words, she reported to the people that found her, she never heard the dogs barking because they had dogs searching for her. She never heard the people calling her name until literally on the 6th day when she walked out of the cave and went, "Here I am." She was in a bathing suit, a little girl's bathing suit. She had no t-shirt on, no shoes on, like just a bathing suit. But she covered 10 miles a day in the wilderness of Arkansas. She admitted to the people that rescued her that she never came across the first animal, except there was something in the cave that scared her. There was something in the cave underneath a rock that scared her. And I'm going to show you a video. It is a little longish, so I may stop it partway and then fast forward it through like the slower stuff. But I think you guys, you kind of need to hear this, all right? Because I'm telling y'all, this story, there's something here. I don't know if maybe she walked through what would be considered portal or what.
Ravines, dense forestry, and mountainous terrain. This is where 8-year-old Catherine Van Alst would come to disappear on the 16th of June, 1946. At the time, she, along with her parents and 2 siblings, was staying at their cabin within the park. Both of Catherine's brothers were older than her, and together they travelled a short distance to go play without their parents at a nearby dam that held a pool of water. It was never made entirely clear what exactly happened at the dam, but it appears that at some point, Catherine had enough and wandered off back to the cabin alone. It was during this walk that she vanished, and in the immediate aftermath, neither the brothers or the parents realised this had happened. That is, until the brothers came home without her. This obviously set off alarm bells, and the family began to look for her. They quickly realised this wasn't going to be an easy feat, and the authorities were called, and the official search effort would begin. Interestingly, the first report of this incident I found came from the Joplin Globe on the 17th of June, 1946, who had received a report that a body had been discovered. The search for Catherine continued tonight at Devil's Den State Park, 14 miles south of Fayetteville. A report this afternoon that the child's body had been discovered in the West Fork of White River proved to be unfounded. Washington County Deputy Sheriff said that the child disappeared yesterday while playing near the river. I did briefly look to see if I could find more on that, but I didn't find further mention of a body being discovered. So I'm not sure if someone else's body had been discovered.
So you hear what he said? They begin to search, and a newspaper that's no longer in publication originally put out that there was a missing child, but there was also the body of a child found in the same vicinity in the river. And then they come back and they're like, yep, but it's not Catherine. But they never clarify, was there another child's body found in the river, or was that just miscommunication and somebody assumed? So keep that in mind as we continue, because this gets so weird.
Or if this was just bad information. In any case, within a matter of days, there were over 200 people out searching for Catherine, and around 3 to 4 days in, some searchers thoroughly believed that she was still alive. The hope that Catherine may still be living and may yet be found in the Devil's Den area was expressed by several in Fayetteville today. R.D. Whiteley, who was among several who hunted in the area yesterday afternoon, said today he gave the child a 95% chance of still being alive. Some might find this next part of interest too. It was recalled that berries and fruit are abound in the region, and that the child may be able to find enough to eat and drink to stay alive. At this point, I came across this diagram, which was reported by the Northwest Arkansas Times on the 22nd of June. The diagram is of the general area that Catherine disappeared, with places of interest being labelled A through H. A displays the location of the dam, B designates the lake, and C the deep pool just below the dam which had been drained, dragged, and otherwise thoroughly searched. D shows the location of the park area in which the parents' cabin belongs. E shows where the search was centred at Lee's Creek. F shows the point at which footprints were found, believed to belong to Catherine. The small arrow indicates the direction of believed travel. G and H are largely unrelated, but mark a farm home and Ellis Creek respectively. If you were worried, you can set that aside now, because Catherine was found alive and well 6 days after her disappearance. Let's have a look at some specifics and the moment of discovery. Catherine, barefooted and clad in a playsuit, was found alive this afternoon in the rugged terrain of Devil's Den State Park, approximately 5 miles southeast of the spot where she disappeared Monday afternoon. At the hospital, Dr. E.F. Ellis reported she was in good condition, although her body was covered with insect bites and she showed some evidence of shock. A searching party, organised by R.D. Whiteley, heard the child's cry, "Here I am," about 3:30 p.m. in reply to their shouts. First to reach her was Porter Chaddick, Pine Bluff, a war veteran and a student at the University of Arkansas. A calm thank you was the child's greeting to him, Mr. Chaddick related. Just as calmly, the girl told her rescuers that she had given up hope of being found. She said she had seen no living thing, nor had she heard voices of any of the numerous searching parties until today. She said that she had been near the spot where she was found for several days and had been drinking water from a pool and eating berries. At night, she stayed in caves, she said. It's interesting and astounding that she'd managed to avoid the searchers for all that time. However, after doing a little bit of research, I managed to find the location she disappeared from in more detail using Google Earth. The dam being the place she disappeared from, and 5 miles southeast being the place she was discovered. It's when you zoom out that the scale of the situation dawns on you. What's interesting about this is that Google Earth is using air miles. So if that truly was the point she was discovered, that distance is far greater when having to navigate around the terrain, because you can't go in a straight line. Also, it's hard to believe that was the place she was found, because surely that means she crossed the road, or perhaps that road wasn't there in 1946. I honestly have no idea, so it'll be interesting to see some discussion on that afterwards. Also, just look at the terrain and the density of the forest. There's no way that can be right, surely. In any case, leaving that confusion aside, the Northwest Arkansas Times did a great job following this incident and then spoke with Catherine and her parents directly, which gave us lots of details. Still thin and sunburned after being lost 6 full days in the wooded, thicket-covered mountains of Devil's Den State Park, Catherine showed few signs of her ordeal this morning in City Hospital. Her mother and father had been awfully scared while she was lost, she said. I was a little scared too, she admitted, but I didn't see any bears. Glad we've got that one covered anyway. I'm not sure if you've seen my coverage on that, but I have a full video dedicated to young people being taken by what they said were bears. It's an interesting one, so I'll link it at the top right now if you want to open a new tab, and in the description below. Carrying on, Catherine said it felt pretty good, jokingly, to be famous and in all the newspapers, but not as good as it will feel to get home to Kansas City. I don't like that place, she said, speaking of the area in which she wandered 6 days and 6 nights. After losing her way while trying to return to the cabin, Catherine said she just kept walking. I didn't think there would be a lot of people looking for me, but there was. The sheriff said there were 200 people looking for me. There were plenty of people searching for Catherine, but she never heard a voice or saw anyone until she heard our Whiteley. I was on the mountain by my cave when I heard someone calling. I thought it was my dad. I started down the mountain to find him and met a man who carried me. Once, while lost, Catherine had dogs, but I didn't know their names, so I couldn't call them. She heard airplanes one day, but never could get out from under the trees to see one. The plane she heard was searching for her. It's interesting about the dogs because it insinuates that the searchers might have been fairly close at some point, though the dogs never managed to find her scent. She never heard searchers themselves, though, and from what she said, she didn't try to get their attention. I haven't read specifically that search dogs were involved here, but I'm willing to bet they were. They usually are. Carrying on, she also made the point that she didn't remember her entire time spent missing. I didn't think anyone would ever find me. The first night, I slept in the grass because it was warmer than a cave, but when it rained, I went into the cave where it was dry. I didn't get very cold. For several days, she doesn't remember exactly how long she lived in the cave near to where she was found. She can't remember all of the days that she was lost. Once, I went into a big, deep cave, but there wasn't any water in the cave, and there was something with lots of legs under a rock, so I went someplace else. I slept on a big rock where it was warm. The creature and a turtle were the only living things that the little girl saw during her 6 days in the woods. Although
You guys, do you know the odds of that? That this little girl only saw a turtle and something that she could not identify that scared her so badly in the cave under the rock that she decided to leave. But it's the inability to recall. 6 days it's a lot for a child, but she's 8. She's not 4 or 5. And I taught first grade for many years. So their ability to recall a week is quite possible to say, I did this. And they mean that 7 days, they've got the recall ability for 7 days. Now, kids back then were much more mature than they are today because they didn't have social media. They didn't have all, they read very well. They were very articulate. They were very polite, very self-sufficient in the 40s. I know my parents are from that generation. Things were very different. It was not uncommon for an 8-year-old to actually keep their younger siblings during this period of time. They were very mature. So she's literally telling them, I went into the cave, there was no water, a deep, dark cave with no water, but there was something under a rock with lots of legs that scared her so badly, she chose to go back outside and to be in the elements. So it does make you question, like, what was it that happened to her? Where did she go? Was she transported? In other words, did she go into a cave and it be some form of portal and end up in a different area? Because it's a huge distance. And like the guy said, she would have had to go over miles. And that's nautical miles, or not nautical, that's air miles. But on land, going up and down, they estimated that she would have had to have walked somewhere about 9 to 10 miles a day. But she admits she stayed within that cave for at least 3 nights. I don't know. I don't know. But let's go back to Devil's Den today and talk about the double murder. I had originally, when I did that video for you guys, I told y'all when the guy attacked, right? And his name is Andrew James McGann, 28 years old. When he attacked Clinton and Kristen Brink, she took the kids and ran with them, right? Like she Thank God she did. Because let me tell you, the gentleman that did that double homicide was an educator. He's a school teacher. All right. And he should have been banned his first year for inappropriate contact with little girls. He had little girls sitting in his lap. It is reported in a complaint from a parent that he told a little girl that he would like to date her. If she was older, I would date you, I'd marry you. He brought gifts to little girls. He gave favoritism. So when he attacked, the mother, Kristen, took her daughters and ran them up the trail. And they were 7 and 9, 2 little girls, and told them to keep going. Keep going. She got them as far up the trail as she could, and she went back to help her husband. And he killed them both. I think with all of my heart, he passed multiple people on this trail and chose not to kill them. He chose a family with the age of girls that he was known to teach, 3rd and 4th grade. That's 9. All right. That's 9-year-olds. Could be 8, could be 10, but on average, it's 9-year-olds. Being an educator, knowing this, knowing his history now that's coming out from Texas, right? And the school where he originally worked and was basically run off, but allowed to get another job at another state, right? He's been in Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas now. I think it would do the police good to go back and look for either missing little girls that fit that age group in the areas that he lived and taught, or go back and look for stabbings of people in the areas that he lived and he taught. Because the chances that this 28-year-old man covered his license plate with duct tape, came into the woods with everything that he needed to commit murder, sought out and then murdered not only a man, but a woman. I think his intent was their daughters, or a daughter, the 9-year-old. So I honestly believe that this was somebody that had either attempted this before or had successfully pulled this off before. Because you don't just wake up one morning and prepare to the extent that this demonic, evil man prepared without practicing. Dry runs, folks, dry runs. I think as he was walking through Devil's Den, he spotted these young girls. I think that there was something about possibly, like I said, the 9-year-old that caught his attention, and he decided right then, these are the ones. Yes, Kelly, I totally agree that somewhere they're going to find evidence that he had done something similar to this. I listened to this podcast earlier of retired police and investigators, and they feel the same way I do. Like, this is probably not a one-off.
Allegedly, just jumping into a double homicide that has no criminal record in the past to speak of, and goes out and decides one day, I'm going to take a knife, I'm going to put the tape around my license plates on my vehicle, I'm going to drive to the park and go on the trail and murder 2 adults. And, in the presence of their 2 children, 2 young children. It's just crazy. Again, I'd be looking at this guy in all the areas that he's ever lived in and worked in to see if there's any unsolved homicides and see if there's any link.
Yeah, he definitely has a very shady past going back to 2022 with all the different school districts that he worked in. And it goes from 3 different states, the state of Texas, Oklahoma, where he comes from, and Arkansas. He didn't start teaching yet, but he was set to start teaching next week. and as a grade school teacher. And there are some allegations out there from parents after this horrific homicide took place that he was keeping young children, little girls, after school, after class, and students were finding them sitting on his lap and him making statements like, "Oh, if you were older, I would like to date you." I mean, those are major red flags. This is not a normal person, a 28-year-old young teacher that is displaying this type of odd behavior. And it's no coincidence that our two victims here, Clinton David Brink and his wife, Kristen, had their two children with them. Their two daughters, 7 and 9 years young.
Now, something else I noticed. I know that they are going to seek the death penalty. That's, what I've found so far. Let me make a point. He was at the barber when they caught him. They tracked the vehicle. Okay. So they go into the barber, they arrest him, and they take hair clippings with permission from the woman that was cutting his hair off the floor. Folks, a good defense attorney will get that evidence thrown out. Why, Sam? Because it's a barber shop and they're legitimately, that's contaminated. Like it could be 100 different people's hair in those samples, right? And the fact that the beautician is getting, the hairdresser is getting on all these podcasts and sharing her side of it, like, stop. This is a double homicide. You can have your moment to share your experience, but maybe after the trial, after you get on the stand, because a good defense attorney is now going to record every single time that she has given her side of the story. And every time you give your side of the story, maybe little details, you might misspeak it, you might put it out of order, you might comment differently. And then what happens is if he gets a good attorney and the attorney says, "No, I know you pled guilty, but we're going to change your plea because we don't want you." Hold on, guys. Sorry. I was waiting on a phone call, but they can call back. We don't want you to get the death penalty. So we're going to fight it now. Right. And now here, one of their star witnesses is just spewing everything she knows. Exactly. It's called tainted testimony. And this is where social media can be such a bad thing. Like, this is serious. If you've got an upcoming court case that you take serious, you don't get on social media and just start bumping gums, because your testimony is going to be recorded and brought into court. And when they question you, if you have changed what you're saying on the stand from what you said prior in these recorded social media testimonies, you could get the entire thing. You could provide them enough doubt. Because in a criminal trial, it's very different than in civil court. There's not the burden of proof in civil court. In a court case like this, where you're asking for the death penalty, it has to be without a shadow of the doubt, without a doubt. And they really hammer that into the jury. You have to know without a shadow of a doubt that this person did it, because you're going to give them death for doing what they said he did. And so for a lot of people, any inconsistencies or shadows of doubt on evidence they'll give a no-go. They'll hang it up. They'll have to do a retrial because it's such a serious thing. They don't want that on their conscience. They're good people. They're not murderers. So if you can provide them with any little bit of doubt, they're going to toss it out. And I just think, like, her literally telling the world that they got hair samples from the floor of her beauty parlor. Why? Why? And I know she's not thinking that way, but somebody needs to tell her, like, just stop. Stop. You're going to be a star witness, and your first impressions need to be recorded by the police. What you know needs to be taken by the detectives. It does not need to be shared across social media. It's exactly, it's like the 5 seconds of fame. You know, I want everybody to hear my story. People are calling me and I'm just like, yes, let me tell you. It's kind of like the Carmelo Anthony case right now. You have not really seen any first eyewitnesses come out with statements or seen video. Why? Because they know that it's going to muddy the waters, and they pretty much have gagged everybody. Like, no, you can't do this. It's a serious case. It's murder. And both parties deserve their day in court. And this is where social media comes in and just kind of muddies everything. I agree, Rivers of Grace. Somebody needs to tell her to stop gabbing, girl. I'm seeing you all over the place. And the story is a little different every time. So that's going to throw doubt right there on whether or not she's a credible witness. And I just think people don't take this kind of stuff serious enough. You know, this is a murder trial. Yeah, you had him in your shop, but you're perfectly okay. So just be quiet, sit down, and don't disclose everything. I don't know. It's a small look. These are small police departments that you're dealing with. And they don't always know, or maybe they don't have jurisdiction to reach across where he was caught and where he killed and say, hey, can you get her to be quiet? So that's all kind of, but they should know. They should have some training. You understand? I mean, like, they really should. Folks, look, I don't get paid for this, but if you would like to get our monthly newsletter, sometimes bi-monthly, and come on Zooms where we're helping you guys learn about things like your state constitution and how to take America back, how to protect our country. You just donate whatever you feel led by the Lord to do. You can look in the top comments. Please make sure to put your email in the memo. Everything comes through email. The Zoom links, the newsletter, it all goes through email. But we have a great time on our Zooms. Though I cover a lot of very difficult and touchy subjects here, the Zooms are very different. It is to help get you guys grouped up by state so that you can start basically making friends and creating groups where you kind of watchdog legislation going through your state capitals and things like that. It's very important. So for the ones of you that have been rowing in my boat lately to help, but not just my husband with medical, but with my dog, I sincerely appreciate you guys. I really do. I love y'all so much. And we do cover very deep topics here. And I know that for some people, you just can't. Like, you just can't. And that's okay. You know, there's all kind of people out there that'll tickle your ears. I simply just cannot do it. 10 years in college to become an educator, 7 years in a classroom as a teacher. You know, I seeded a Montessori school, Christian school in my community. I'm on the 4-H advisory board. I worked 3.5 years running a youth program on Wednesday nights, and I've homeschooled people's children. I simply cannot and will not provide information that I know is 100% not provable. That it's just me. I hold myself to a different standard. I have to. And I hope that you guys understand that. Like, I don't have a very big BS meter. Like, I just don't, you know. There's so many people that do this and they come up with topics and information that keeps you watching because they get paid for it. The longer you watch, the more money they make. And that's truly what they care about. And it's not where I just don't see them coming from a place where they just want people to have the truth. You know, they more want to either deceive you intentionally or deceive you for monetary gains. Thanks, Leslie. She said, please make sure you hit the like button and please check your subscription. Let me tell you what YouTube does. our channel will get very close to 104,000 subscribers, and then YouTube will unsubscribe people, but it doesn't show up on the videos. Yeah, I lose people. I can tell you which videos when I'm fixing to do them, which one are going to drive people away, but I'm okay with those people leaving. It's more the ones of you that watch me on a regular basis, and then you're like, golly, I went and checked, and somehow YouTube had unsubscribed me. And they do that. They love to do that because I won't toe their line. I don't have time for it, folks. I've got so much going on in my life right now, and everybody, look, we're all going to end up in the same place. Like, I should say same place. We're all going to die, right? And everything that comes out of your mouth, God's going to weigh it. It's in the Bible. And I just don't want to get in trouble for something that made me a few $100s here, and then I end up in like serious trouble there, if you catch my drift. But I love you guys. I need to get ready. Stephen has his neurosurgery appointment again on Wednesday, which is August 6th. And we're going to be staying overnight in New Orleans on August 5th because of the time of the appointment, and it's so far away from us. So I do have a dog sitter coming to stay with Hammer because I cannot leave him unwatched. You know, we still, like I said, we don't really know what is causing that inflammation where he was losing his ability to walk and stuff like that. And I have to be able to know that he is cared for while I put all my energy into my husband. So I love you guys so very much. Be blessed, be safe out there. And thanks for chatting with me. Talk to you later.